Hey guys, it's National Kevin Yang, National Master Kevin Yang, back at it with another video of a second analysis of a different game that I played today against a fellow chess club member. So I tried to get a little creative in the opening again, try to play with down a pawn. So the move order came e4, e5 today. Remember last week when I played e4, f5? You should take, and I said I was going to play king f7. Well, this week I was a little bit less crazy than that, but instead I played g6. And this loses a pawn immediately right away. Knight takes e5. And I was thinking I was going to play queen e7, try to put pressure on this. d4, right? d6, knight f3, queen takes e4, and let's say bishop e2. And I have to say, this position is terrible for black. I would say this is winning for white, because let's look at this. Bishop g7, castles, knight f6, right? Now knight f6 runs into bishop b5, because if bishop d7, rook e1, and pins the queen and the king, right? So I have to play king f8, and you still play rook e1. And look at the development. Just the harmony of the pieces look better than these guys, right? So black's position here is terrible. So I wanted to just give up that pawn. I wanted to just play bishop g7, knight e7, and castles. But my opponent was nice enough to really ignore the pawn. So I protected it. Bishop c4. I brought my knight out. I castled. d3, d6, right? Preparing to bring the bishop to g4. Bishop e3 and c6. Now, I know that bringing the knight up is probably one of the better moves, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to play c6 in order to maybe sneak in a d5. And at this point, right, what should you do as white? Now, you know that your opponent wants to play d5 and d4. So let's bring back the phrase of prophylaxis, right? In terms of preventing the opponent's threats, the best move probably is d4. And what this does is I can no longer push two squares. I can only push one, and it's not even 100% that great. So in this case, I would move my knight out and get my queen out, get the knight out, get the bishop out, just those things, but I wouldn't be able to play two pawns up, or pawns moved two squares up. So I guess d4 was the way to capitalize on this odd looking move. But I wanted to maybe, set up some traps. But instead, played bishop b3, perfectly fine. Now played h6. And surely there are plans that black could play a5 or b5, right? But I chose h6. I wanted to play king here and push this pawn eventually, because the bishop was pinning against the pawn and against the king. So queen e2 comes out. I still would have liked to see the move d4, which in this case it would be still really strong. But instead, king h7, rook c1. Now, this move, I thought it lost purpose, right? Usually when you put a rook somewhere, you want it to do something. But the rook didn't do anything. I mean, I'm guessing, but I think our chess friend wanted to put the rook here and maybe just misclicked and put it here. That's my best guess. But if it really happened, the rook, right, you want to place it on a square where it does something real useful, right? You don't want to place it on a square where it's virtually dead and you can't put it anywhere. But if you're here, you can move it up one square, get the other rook out, and push this pawn. So you have a lot of opportunities on this file. But rook c1, knight d7. Now, I thought about it here. I thought I had two options. f5, or I could play knight d7 and then the same move, f5, right? Because I thought knight d7, f5, and then bring the knight to f6. So for example, knight d7, right? a3, f5, knight e1, knight f6. I thought of something like this, right? Or you could say f4, bishop d2, knight f6. Something like this, right? g5 is prepared, g4, get the knight in, and it's sort of like what we call a King's Indian attack. So I could cover that attack in a video later on if you want, but it's a very dangerous attack that leads to sharp play for both sides, except in this case, white is supposed to attack on this side, but white has no attack. So in this case, black is virtually, I guess, winning, like almost winning, because it's it's really hard to prevent against this push that white has, or this push that black has, while white is sort of grounded on this side, right? So that's my goal. As we saw, go back to our game position. King h7, knight d7, d4, d4. Right now, I mean, it's not too late, and I think it's fine. I think it's a great move. I played queen c7, just developing the queen a little bit, trying to overprotect this pawn. Takes, takes, and now rook d1. So I think it was a misslip. It was a misclick. Double check me on that. f5 happened. And now I was thinking, takes, and if I took with a pawn, it would be bad. The reason being, knight check. Takes, bam. Bishop here, bam, right? But it was definitely hard to see this move, because it's not something you find in puzzles. It's just something that really I've seen from the games that I've played, right? I've seen people fall for this before. I mean, it's happened before. So that's why I recognize it right away. So in this case, I would have taken with the knight, got the other knight out, takes, got the bishop out. So that was my plan, right? But I played f5, h3, and now f4. And what I did, I started setting up a King's Indian attack. Just a little bit differently, because in what I call the system, I can play on both sides now, because my opponent is, these pawns aren't advanced yet, right? So I can still play on this side. So let's say bishop d2, which was sort of forced, and then I played knight c5. And what I did with knight c5 is, instead of developing the knight here, now I have some ideas of pushing here and getting the bishop out this way to really target this clumsy setup. So queen c4, it helped my case a lot. b6, and now my opponent resigned, thinking that, okay, well, I can't really prevent this, right? And really the only way to prevent it is queen e2. And I could play a5, once again threatening this, right? But after a4, let's say, now knight takes, c takes, play bishop a6, I take the rook, and really white does not have that much for it. So let's look at this. Queen e2, a5, knight b1, right? If a4, bishop c4, b5, bishop d3, right? So barely escapes. For example, if bishop comes here, then c4, is a4 possible? a4 runs into bishop c2, okay? So c4 comes, and we could play b5. Ah, yeah, I could put some pressure here too. So it's really tricky, these things, but let's summarize why I won this game. Well, first of all, I gave the opportunity for white to take the pawn, right? And I was hoping it would be taken, but it wasn't taken. I'm not sure what happened, but, you know, I guess it's a gift. Bishop g7, this part was all fine. And I'd say a tip of approval is right here, this prophylaxis move, right? Instead of moving the bishop back to knowing that I will run 2 squares, run the 1 square yourself. So play d4. And because this whole time I was making waiting moves, I was trying to prepare myself, right? So I would say another one was just continue to push d4, right? Don't be afraid of what I'm going to do. Continue to strike in the center. Continue to create your own play. So don't play a defensive war. Always activity, like attacking, is the best defense, as people say, right? You don't want to wage a war that's defensive. You want one where you have something to play for, right? So d4 is good. Take, and now I get this f5 in. And I have to say, I'm going to play f4 next move, and you probably have to take it. But I'm guessing you did not see what I analyzed with the knight g5 move, right? So I would have had to take with the knight here, and you'd still be completely fine. In fact, you'd have a lot of pressure on this guy, and I'm not sure he would take it. So I guess that was the best choice for you. But I got to push f4, I got to push knight c5, I got b6 in. So really, it was just being a little too defensive this game, right? And maybe that pushing that pawn came a little bit late. And those, I would say, are the only mistakes here. But otherwise, it was really well played, right? The pieces were developed, they were aiming towards the center, but I was creating all these little traps and those small improvements. Notice how every move I was trying to do something. King out, knight out, queen out, pawn up, knight up, pawn up. So every move I was making progress. And as I want to say as a lesson, every move of yours should have a meaning. So thank you for listening.